iPad set up just so I know how to do it next time.
Yes. So you can like connect on your phone, like, and have the FaceTime kind of thing open, so you're still connected with the camera, or on an iPad by downloading the Zoom app, and then you just enter in the meeting ID number, or you can call in or do this. But yeah, for anyone future reference with that. Okay, well, I wanted to do this Zoom chat and kind of share with you guys some of the things that I left with Summit, like, prominently in my mind, that I was like, okay, I really need to work on this. I need to make these adjustments. And I'm so glad that we have other coaches on this Zoom chat who actually were at Summit. And I might pick on you, girls, and have you kind of share kind of your takeaways too, because I think that it's been interesting for me in different groups where I see people sharing what they learned. I'm like, oh, that's interesting that we were in the exact same workshop, but yet this is kind of what stood out to you and this is what stood out to me. I'll tell you that right off the bat, one of the things that was a humbling experience for me, or just stood out the most on, I'm like, if I just changed that one thing, the first, only just changing this one thing, I feel that it would have the greatest impact in my business. And if you went to Summit, you kind of need to have that thought process in your mind, like, what is the one thing, if I only change this one thing, that would have the greatest impact on my business? Because you get told so many things, and you kind of have to pick, like, well, at least this one thing is kind of my main focus, and then you can, obviously apply the others as well. But for myself, I've realized that I have not been sharing so much of the fitness journey, and I haven't been focusing on making sure that my challengers get results, and that I'm sharing my results, and I'm sharing my story, my fitness journey story on social media. Because I've been like, well, I'm still sharing my story, and I still share about, the progression and how my life is different. But I feel like I've kind of been focusing on the wealth creation part of this business, and not enough on, like, hey, this is making a difference for me. And I think that has been a mistake, that I was doing the wrong thing there. And I can look at it and be like, well, that's probably why I'm not maybe drawing in as many, like, people who are passionate about this business like I was in years past. Because really, the people who are, like, so excited about this business and who kind of end up being, like, your strongest coaches are people who have had a story created through using the product, right? I'm going to go through. I'm going to have to mute. Sorry. Okay, I had to go through and mute everybody because there was some background noise. You're welcome to chat and just unmute yourself if you have something you want to add. But yeah, I've made the mistake of talking too much about just the business side of things and the wealth creation, and not focusing so much on, like, I am so excited about this product, or this is what I did today. And of course, I mean, it makes sense. It's one of those things I'm like, well, I've done it before. I don't know why I strayed away from that. But I need to go back to that, and it came from listening to Carl Deichler share, like, this is the business structure. You need to have it, like, use these products, see results, and share that with other people. Help other people see results, share this product with people, and hold them accountable. And that is the business cycle. That's what this business is. And I think I've kind of strayed from that and been a lot of, like, my husband was able to leave his job, and I'm able to work from home and come join my business, instead of saying, like, hey, I want to help you get results with your health and fitness. And then taking those people and saying, you've seen results. you should be your coach. You know what I mean? So, like, just that little 1 degree difference. That I think if I focus on that I will see better results in my business. So that's one thing to kind of keep in mind. But with that, I'm very aware of why I haven't shared a lot of my fitness journey, and I posted about it yesterday, because I've gained weight. Like, I'm not where I was, and it was a lot easier to be like, oh, I'm so excited, I've lost weight, this is so great, when I was feeling on top of the world, right? And so it was like, well, I'm not feeling that way, so I can't talk about that. It's kind of like how I felt, and I'm like, I kind of was battling that in my mind as I had this aha moment, and I realized at Summit that I'm like, that's my journey, that's my story, so that's what I get to talk about. I still need to talk about the fitness part, but just say like, yeah, here I am, and I know that I've gained weight. I know that I don't have this, my belly's not as flat as it was before. I know my thighs are bigger, like, this is my journey, and just be willing to share that. So being vulnerable, right? And I think for you guys, looking at this audience of how can you apply that for yourself, I think you can say, you know what, I'm going to share my journey now with where I'm at now, instead of waiting until you reach your goals to say, okay, now I'm going to talk about my fitness journey and what Beachbody is doing for me. Like, I think it's more inspiring. People say, look at you, like, I can see you progress, and I can see you get better. And, it was a really brave moment for me to even post a size workout video. And I'm so glad. I think I saw Lene on here. Yeah, Lene's on. She's my neighbor, and she came over and did the workout with me, and she was the one who was like, I want to do this workout so we can make a video and I can post on social media. And I'm like, I don't post size workout videos on social media, but because she was like, yeah, I want to do it, I'm like, okay, we'll record it. But I'm like, you know what, I'm just gonna post it, and then when people see me post another one again in like a month, and they'll be like, wow, you got a lot better, and that will be encouraging and relatable for them. So that was like my number one big take through. I'm just gonna pull out some of my notes and kind of share some of the things that I wrote down. We got to listen to this photographer. His name is DeWitt Jones, and he was a photographer for the National Geographic. And so he got up there and he was showing these slides of the photos that he's taken and sharing the things that he's learned in this experience of traveling the world and taking all of these photographs. And it was so cool, and it was a really unique thing to hear him talk about going into a field of dandelions and looking at that and saying like, well, I came here for dandelions, but the light isn't quite right, and this or that's not right, and it's not the way that I want it to be, so I'm going to come back later. And then he would come back 3 days later, all the dandelions were dead, and there were just these puffballs. And he talks about like coming in there and just being so disappointed that he missed his opportunity. He missed the beautiful dandelions, and now there's just these puffballs. And he goes, but then I was reminded and heard this little voice in my head saying, what is there here to celebrate? And what is right with this situation? What am I falling in love with here? And he turned around, and then he shows this photo of, laying down on the grass and rolling around with the puffballs and taking photos of the puffballs. And then he turns around and he shows like the most beautiful photo of this puffball, like he's underneath it and the puffball is above, and it's like the puffball is covering the sun, and it's like outlining the thing, and it's just the most beautiful photograph. And it was like, I'm like choked up just even thinking about it, this picture of a puffball. But it stood out to me so much because I think that is an art and a skill that we get to develop as coaches. As we're working our business, as we're doing these challenge groups, as we're working with our coaches approach each day with that mindset of, what am I falling in love with here? What is there here to celebrate? What is right with this situation? Because I'll be honest, like, we all have things that we're working through, and, I've got plenty of things right now that I'm stressed out about, and things that, like, are not going the way that I want it to. But if I can shift my mindset and say, okay, I've got puffballs, I wanted dandelions. What can I celebrate here? What is going right in this situation? And if I can do that, I can create a magical moment, not just for my team, but for my coaches, for my challengers, and for everyone who's following me on social media, And so in everything that you're experiencing, in every situation, I thought that was such a great skill to adopt, if that makes sense. Another thing that he said that stood out to me is, I saw an angel in the stone and carved to make it free. And he talked about how, it's seeking out the beauty in places where other people would dismiss it. And to me, as I heard that, I couldn't help but think of the Beachbody Challenge winners that were up on stage at the closing ceremony. And they had this coach get up and share her story. Her name's Melissa Hadley. And she's a coach who was diagnosed with MS and told, like, I don't even know why you're walking. You shouldn't be able to, walk. You should be in a wheelchair right now. And she was working full time and wanted to be home with her kids. And she shared her story of how she did these fitness programs. She drank Shakeology, and she was able to, like, have her MS manageable. And then as she shared her story, she focused on that. She was able to build this business, and she was able to leave her full-time job and be home with her kids. And as I heard that quote, I saw an angel in the stone and I carved to make it free. I thought of her, as she shared her story on the summit stage. And I saw these Beachbody Challenge winners, because you would look at them and you wouldn't think, that this person could possibly see changes. And you wouldn't look at Melissa Hadley and think, oh, that's a top coach. She's really dynamic. She's really pretty. And man, she's going to, like, be the top of this business. You wouldn't really think that, to be honest. But somebody saw it in her, and somebody saw the potential that these people have. And I don't know why I'm like, have a lump in my throat and I'm choked up just thinking about it. But somebody saw that potential and they carved to make it free. And I just think, like, about us as coaches and the responsibility that we have and the opportunity that we have to really help people change their lives through these challenge groups. And I think it's so easy to get, like, discouraged. It's so easy to almost get, like, cynical because so-and-so quit, or so-and-so dropped out of my challenge group, and I don't really know if what I'm doing is making a difference, or if people are actually changing. Like, I've felt that way myself, It's like, I've seen people have amazing transformations, but I also have had people quit, and it's hard. And then when you approach a new person, you're like, well, I don't really know where you're going to go with this. And it's like, I get to give everyone my all. I get to look at everyone that I meet as there's an angel in here, and there's a potential and a great divinity here. And I get to see that in them, and I get to help them see it in themselves so we can carve to make it free. And anyways, that was another thing that really stood out to me, the opportunity that we have. Another thing that was shared there was this idea of, how can I find the next right answer? And I loved that, because I think so often I get so many coaches who will approach me and they'll say, like, okay, how am I supposed to respond to this person? Or what's the best way to get a coach started? And they're looking for, like, the end all be all right answer, right? And I mean, I'm sure some of you may admit that you've been guilty of thinking that there's a right way and everywhere else must be wrong. And so if you're not getting results, you must be doing it the wrong way. I know I've been like guilty of thinking that myself at times. And that was such a gentle reminder to me that like there are so many ways to approach people, to explain this business, to invite people, to share your story on social media. There's so many ways to meet new people, and there's no right or wrong. There's no like, this is how you do it, and if you're not doing it this way, you're not doing it right. And so you get to find your own rhythm. You get to find like what works for you and what is the next right answer, and he just showed all these examples of coming into this canyon, like, take for example, Lake Powell, into this canyon at Lake Powell, and all of the beautiful images that he was able to create from just this one canyon. And it wasn't like you go into this canyon and the canyon says, only one person will get a good photo from this area, and there will only be one good photo, and all of the rest of them are crap. That's not what we learn from nature. That's not what we learn in life. We learn that there are so many right ways to address things that are all so different, and you can get this beautiful result in finding your own way to take your own photograph, if that makes sense, if that's sinking in for you. He also talked about these birds that he saw that were coming up, and how like there was this big flock and they were flapping their wings so hard, and it seemed like they were in this kind of like a rat race where they were all so close together starting out, and they're flapping so hard. And then he saw these other birds that were above, and it seemed like they were just soaring, and they were just coasting and flying, and they weren't even like flapping their wings, but they just seemed to soar. And I thought of that for myself, and I'm like, guys, like, it's okay to remove yourself from what everybody else is doing and run your own race. Do your own thing and not compare yourself to what other people are doing, and let it just naturally like soar for you. It doesn't mean you don't put in an effort. It doesn't mean that you don't need to, put in the work, but it means that like when you get away from everyone else and just kind of do your own thing and not compare yourself to other people and be looking side to side and being like, I really hope I'm doing this right. And like, you're going to soar, and it's just going to be this effortless thing where it's just going to flow for you. I was able to get on a different call this morning with Doug Moss and some other coaches. And one of the things that he shared that just kind of stood out to me is that what works for one coach may not work for another, because they have a different demographic and they have a different experience and they've worked a different market. And so truly, don't compare yourself to what other people are doing and think they're posting this, I need to post this. It's like, do you. Nobody else can do you the way that you can. And you're going to reach people nobody else can. And so just soar, and do your own thing. Another takeaway that I wanted to share with you was this idea of the one breath meditation. And the one breath meditation is where you're sitting there and you focus on your breath, and you take a deep breath and you take it all in and you give it all out. You give it all out. You give it all back. Take it all in and give it all back. And as you do that and you're listening to your body, you're listening to what nature is, like your natural being and who you really are, as you're doing that, you don't give it all back with fear of, is there going to be enough air for me to take the next breath? I'm in this big convention center and there's this big, like, general assembly. Like, I just remember that dawning on me in this big general assembly, and there's thousands of people there. And I'm sitting there taking this deep breath, and I'm realizing, like, I have no scarcity mentality. my spirit, who I really am at my core, does not have a scarcity mentality. I don't like breathe with fear that if I take this breath, the person next to me won't have enough air to breathe. And I'm not like cutting everyone's throat, trying to make sure that they don't breathe so I have enough air. I just know I can take it all in and give it all back without worry or concern for my next breath. And I feel through personal development, I've gotten rid of a lot of a scarcity mentality, but I also still see the ugly shadows of that in my life. And that stood out to me for a reason, and it hit a nerve for me for a reason, so that I can dissipate that and get rid of that and know that there's no like clawing to the top. There is enough room for all of you to reach your goals. And you don't have to worry that, will there be enough for me? There is. There's plenty, and there's an abundance, and there's enough air for us all to breathe and take as many deep breaths as we want. But also, the only way for you to take those deep breaths is for you to give it all back, and to just share and openly give to everyone you meet and say, this is what I'm doing, and this is my answers, and this is like my training document. Like, just share. Like, it's okay. You can give it all back without worry and concern for enough, if that makes sense. So that was another thing that stood out to me. Let me pull back. So I'm pulling up my other notes because I wrote them on 2 different notes here. One of the other things that stood out to me at Summit was during the Shakeology workshop. So they did this workshop about Shakeology and talking about it. And again, this is one of those things that I'm like, I used to do this, and then I kind of broke away from it, and I get to go back to it. And that is on taking the time to really educate people on what they're using and what they're taking. And I'm like, I can easily take one day a week and do a Shakeology ingredient spotlight. And I used to do this. And if you guys even, wanted, you could go to my Facebook profile, my personal profile, and go to my albums, and you'll see that I have a Shakeology album. And I used to add a photo to that once a week and post about it. And you'll see I haven't done that for quite a while. And that was a mistake on my part. But that is something that I want to get back to, in sharing on social media, like, hey, did you know about moringa? Like, moringa does this and that, and like sharing the benefits of it and making sure I'm educating people, because people are like, holy cow, I had no idea. I'm making these green smoothies. I'm buying all of these supplements from Amazon to add into this smoothie that I make. And it's all included in yours. Like, I just think that helps educate people. But then also, along with that, sharing those posts into my coach group. So you guys are going to see me start doing that. Sharing that into my coach group and simultaneously sharing it into my challenge groups. Because I feel that there's a lot of coaches who don't even understand the value of the shake that they're drinking. They're like, yeah, it tastes good, or, well, my coach says I should need to drink it every day, and so I do. But I don't think, like, if people understood what was really in there, they would never, ever, ever, ever miss a day of drinking Shakeology, because they'd be like, my body needs those nutrients. My body to function properly in the way that I'm meant to. Like, you eat clean and eat healthy, but they talked about how, like, what was it, like anyone who's there, maybe they can fill me in on the correct statistic, but Darren O'Lean said how, like, a potato has, like, 100% less, like, vitamin A than it did just 50 years ago. So all these people are like, oh, I just want to eat clean. I'm just going to eat healthy foods. It's like, good. This is not a replacement for it. But the climate has changed. The world has changed. The soils are not as dense, like, in the nutrition to feed this food. The air quality has gone down. The, like, quality of the water that's feeding this plant, like, everything, so many factors have come into this. where an apple today is not the same as an apple was 25 years ago even, and so just taking that time to really educate people a little bit more would be in my benefit, so that's another thing that I walked away from that I wanted to make sure and implement in my business as well. And for some reason, my jaw is killing me right now because I think I've been talking too much the last 2 days. Anybody else who was there, does anyone else want to like share some of their takeaways as well? Like what they're working on now? I'll call in a couple of you if anyone doesn't step up.
I'm just going through my notes. I was trying to find something. I loved the dandelion one too. And my whole takeaway, I think the biggest takeaway from all of Summit was perspective for me. And how the way we do things is really how it's going to play out. And when he was talking about the dandelion thing, the thing that came to my mind was that little picture that's around on Google, but it's of the little girl that's blowing the fluffy, poofy thing.
Yeah.
Whatever it's called. So she's blowing it, and the quote was, where one sees a weed, another sees a wish. Mm-hmm. And so to her, it's just that whole perspective thing. Like, an adult might look at that and see the weed, but to a little kid, it's like, cool, I can blow it, and look at all these dreams that might come true as I make a wish. And that kind of played into the Stone Chipper versus Cathedral. I can't remember who talked about that.
Yeah, that was DeWitt too.
Yeah, and the differences in the vision, and remembering that as you chip away, what you're chipping away at is building that massive cathedral, and keeping that in mind.
You have to give them a short recap of the story, because I don't think they know what you're talking about.
You might have to help me.
You can start, and I'll fill in the blanks. I don't want to.
No, like that's all I wrote down was Stone Chipper versus Cathedral, differences in the vision.
Yeah.
And my mind seriously just froze up.
No, you're good. So the story is that there's these two people who are like working on the same thing. They're sitting at this big pile of rocks, and this man comes along and asks the first person, like, "So what are you doing here? What is your job? What are you doing here?" And he's like, "I'm chipping at rocks." Is that what he said? I'm a rock chipper. And this person who said that just kind of was like hunched over and just was like kind of going about his day, but was kind of lacking that light and that luster. And like the second person who was doing the same task, the man asked him, "What are you doing?" And this man had his shoulders back and had this presence of, just this grandeur. And when he was asked, "What are you doing?" he's like, "I'm building a cathedral." And I had the same thing, like that perspective, but then also I couldn't help but think of what we do as coaches and how often like we downplay what we're really doing here. And it's like what we're doing here is changing lives. Like what we're doing here is making such an impact on people's lives that creates a ripple effect that we don't even know, that we don't even understand or comprehend. And I think that there needs to be an air of confidence and an air of like, what I'm doing today matters. What I'm doing today is like significant. And go about your day with this pride, really, that you're doing something significant here. So.
Yeah. No, you just are so good at making me cry.
I don't know why. What's my deal today?
Well, and that plays into, like, I think of that when you're chipping away, it played into the vital behaviors for me. And it's funny because we hear it all the time, and I think we can get numb to like, oh, here we go again, the vital behaviors, being consistent. We hear it all the time. And we can get a bad attitude about it, like, I know. But that's a lifeblood of building a cathedral, and to change your perspective about the way you look at those. And I think that was a lot of takeaways for me too, was what the vitals really are. And I can't remember who it was talking, but I wrote down, you help people know that they matter. You remind them of that daily. You recognize them. You give them something to believe in, belong to, and become. And it's the 3 vitals of the heart. And that like totally touched me because that was my story. Like I wanted something to believe in, belong to, and become. And that's what I was grasping onto. And it's not the challenge pack. It's not, am I doing the challenge group right or am I responding the right way? It's like you're truly giving them something to become, speaking to them what they can become, giving them that belief, a community to belong to, to feel loved and recognized, and something to believe in. Like we give people the vital behaviors of the heart by doing the vital behaviors for our business. And it's just like that's what it's truly about. And I like for me it's like over time I just kind of gotten down to that the heart of it. And what is the other thing? Well, and the funny one was Michelle Myers, I think, and she was talking about how we worry like, well, we can't post on Instagram and Facebook and our like page. We can't post the same thing because what happens if somebody sees that? And they'll be like, oh my gosh, maybe just posted the same thing 3 times. And she's like, if somebody has the time to see those 3 things, they need to get a life. And so to not worry about that and to realize like, you just move forward no matter what. You just keep being you and owning you. Having an others first mentality, even when you don't want to. There were just so many nuggets, but like the biggest thing for me was that perspective. Saying no, sometimes not just saying no to the bad things, but sometimes we gotta say no to the good things in order to have the best. And that's something that Krishna walked away with was, it's not just, saying no to Netflix or to a girl or to, TV or those things, but during certain seasons of your life, like when you're able to push more, you're going to say no to even the good things, like maybe a girl's night that, as moms, we deserve that, but maybe for this time in our life, it's okay to give up that good thing to have what we ultimately want. Yeah. And being okay with that and knowing it's not forever, but it's just for a time in a season. And taking an extra 30 seconds after you talk somebody to track that. And so it goes like not losing track of people. So after you are messaging somebody, take just 30 seconds and go write down some things after their name so that you remember the whole conversation. So when you go back, you're not like, wait, who is this person? What were we talking about? Just take like little 30 seconds to do that. But yeah.
No, that's really good. Some of the things that, like when you mentioned Michelle Myers, I think one of my favorite things that she said in her little breakout session thing is talking about the National Wake Up Call. And when she was mentioning that, she's like, she's been a coach for 7 years. And she's like, I tune in every single week without fail because I figured that if I was the expert on this topic, they would have asked me to speak on it.
Yeah.
And she's like, so by me not getting on that call, I'm saying I don't want to learn about that. That's an area of my life I don't want to learn and I don't want to grow in. And I'm like, that's so true, So I just thought that was really great that so many people were like, oh, I don't need to get on this webinar. It's like, well, if you were the expert, they would have asked you to get on and speak about it. One of the other things that I wrote down was, the story was shared of this boat going down the river, well, more like a canoe, going down the river and on this canoeing trip and the turbulence that you face. And he talked about, like, one of the reasons he loves that canoe ride and he loves that thrill is because you have to know your own boat. You have to be very aware of what that boat can handle and what the weaknesses are of that boat. And I thought of my business. I'm like, I need to be very aware of what's going on in my business and know what is going well, what the strengths are, what the weaknesses are, and for myself. What are my strengths? What are my weaknesses? How can I know myself better through personal development and those things? But he talks about to navigate through the turbulence when you're in a canoe, you have to be in that moment. You have to be completely present, or else you're going to get, like, if you're distracted at all, you're going to get flipped over. You're going to be in the water. And I thought of that as well. Like, how can I be more present in each moment that I'm in? When I'm with my kids, I'm with my kids. When I'm here, I'm here. And this story was shared of this woman who sews or weaves these big canvases and these big rugs, and what was asked of her, like, what do you think about when you weave? And she's like, when I weave, I weave. And I just think of that as well. Like, how can I be more present as I'm messaging people, so that they feel my heart, that they feel like I'm so connected with them. I'm thinking of them. I'm not thinking of somebody else. I'm not thinking of how can I get out of this conversation quicker? Things like that. Like, I want to be in the moment and say, like, when I weave, I weave. When I work, I work. When I do my workout, I do my workout. When I'm with my kids, I'm with my kids. All these things. I'm like, I just want to be in the moment more. Anyone else can jump in too, or I'll just keep sharing some of the other things. Another thing that really stood out to me is that successful people take the bad days as good data. And I loved that it was like, they don't look at things as being like, this means I suck, or, man, that was a really crappy day. Today was a waste of a day. It's like, there's no days that you look at and be like, well, today was a waste. No. Like, bad days are good data, and successful people get curious. They look at these things and they're asking questions. They're curious and they're asking questions, asking, what can I do differently? How can I approach this in a different way? And then they keep on doing that. They rinse and repeat, and they put themselves back in the game, and they try again, and then they fail again, and they use that as more data. That was one thing, I'll be completely honest, that I thought of myself to pull myself out of a funk at Summit, because, one of the days at Summit, we did this open house, and I invited the team to all come and to participate, and really just wanted to say hi and just meet people. I was unprepared in how many people would come, and I didn't order enough food, for one, and the place was kind of small. I didn't prepare ahead of time prior, and also, there was just a lot of people all kind of at the same time, and that I noticed that, like, and everybody, I felt bad. Everyone kind of paid money to get there and taxi. Anyways, I don't mean to get too much in the story, but I noticed some people leaving and walking out the door that I did not have a chance to even say hi to and give them a hug. And I felt really bad. And I got in the car. I just cried because I felt so bad. Like, I really let people down, that I hadn't, had that chance to talk to everybody. And I had to look at it and say, Brigitte, it's data. It's data. And how can you adjust for next year? What can you do differently to avoid this situation next year and to get better? And I had to remind myself, too, how I felt last year at Summit when we didn't do anything like that. Like, we met for pictures, but that was it. And I'm like, I'm getting better, and it's okay, and I'm improving, and I'm using this as data, and I get to keep rinsing and repeating. And it's always going to be an adjustment. And I just think that that's how it is in life. Like, we do these things and we feel like we give it our all and we fail. We come up short. It's not enough. Like, we let people down. It's not good enough. And we get to know, like, we can rinse and repeat. Yeah, it's okay. You don't need to come in here. Yeah. Thank you. I have someone here cleaning my house. Telling her she doesn't have to come in this room. But it's data, and that was what I got to remind myself, that I'm learning and I can take these experiences that are not perfect and not exactly how I wanted them to go, and adjust and learn from them. One of the other things that stood out to me was from Carl Deichler, and he spoke, and for one of the books I ordered for myself is this book called A Curious Mind by Brian Gazer. It's a book Carl Deichler himself recommended to the Coaching Network, so everybody needs to go order it, okay? A Curious Mind. And he talks about the things that he learned from that book, and he was saying that curiosity will conquer fear, and even more than being brave. So curiosity will conquer fear even more than being brave. And I was like, that hit it on the nail for me, because I think of my own journey and how many times I started P90X and failed. How many times in my life I was thinking, I really want to be healthy. You know, I'm going to be brave. I'm going to set this goal. I'm changing my life. Like, I think I took before photos for P90X 6 times with no after photo, because I started and I never finished it. And I've asked myself, you know, what made the difference? You know, why did I stick with it? And I have to say it was curiosity. It wasn't being brave. It was curiosity, because I looked at this and I was like, I am curious how life could be if I were to actually do the things I know I should, you know? Sorry, 1 second, guys. Yeah, you don't really do this right. Sorry, guys. But it was the curiosity, you know, and I just think that we can use that knowledge that curiosity conquers fear for ourselves, and also for our coaches, and also for our challengers, by posing questions and getting them to ask questions. You know, asking them, have you ever thought of what life would be like when you reach your goals? Or have you ever thought about what life will be like when, like, you are eating healthy? You know, or how is life, what's going to change for you when you are, like, working out every day and you're drinking, you're shaking, you're eating healthy? Get them curious as well. And for yourself, if you're like, why am I not sticking with this? Why do I start doing the business, but I don't do it, and I get so scared of what other people think? It's like, how can you harness the power of curiosity, you know, and saying, I'm curious what life could be like. You know, I'm curious if I can do it. And curiosity is approaching the same situation without knowing the outcome, right? Because I think a lot of people approach situations and they have fear because they don't know the outcome. But curiosity is a joyful approach to it, that is like, I'm so excited to see what happens. You're curious, right? Fear is like, I don't know what's going to happen, and it terrifies me. Same situation, but it's approaching it and saying, I'm excited. I don't know if I'm wording this the right way, or how else to really word it, but it's with a positive expectation, not a fearful expectation of what lies in front of you, you know? So be curious in what you can do and what others can do, and help them harness that power of curiosity. Another thing that he kind of said, so he had like 3 big things. He's like, be curious, and he said, be organized. And that was the other thing he said. He's like, you know, he talked about his office and how he has these whiteboards, and he knows like what his goals are, and how many people are on Home Direct, and how many people are signed up for Beachbody On Demand, and how many people are buying the 21-day fix in Spanish. You know, like, he has this data, and I think that that's something that I see some coaches shrink from. But you get to be empowered by that, and empowered in knowing that, like, if I'm in the know, then I can know how to grow. You know, like, you know where you're at, so you know how to get, or where you need to adjust to move forward. And I just thought of myself that I'm like, if Carl Deichler were to call me today, could I tell him exactly how many of my coaches are in Success Club, exactly how many of my coaches have 3 or 4 points, how many of my coaches have completed this or this program, or who in my challenge groups has fallen off, who do I need to reach out to? And again, it's just that raising the bar, and saying I get to be empowered by this information and not skirt away from it. The third thing that he had was be ambitious. And he talked about how, he sets the goals for this company, saying every single month it needs to be a record-breaking month. And some people will be like, who do you think you are? Every single month could be a record-breaking month. And he's like, yeah, I'm going to show you. And I'm not going to be a hold it backer anymore, is how he said. I'm not going to hold things back. And I looked at that and I'm thinking, I'm so grateful that that's the leadership that we have at this company. That somebody every single month is saying, heck yeah, you can do more. And heck yeah, we're going to do more than we did the month before. And next month we're going to do even better. And I'm like, that is what is coming from the top down. And that, because we know, there's no standing still. If you're not progressing, if you're not doing more this month than you did last month, you're moving backwards. You're not progressing, and we're here to push one another. We're here to progress. We're here to do more. And so be ambitious. Be ambitious in your goals. Be ambitious in your daily activities. One of the things that he said that stood out to me is he goes, if I get bored, I'm disengaged. If I get bored, that means I'm disengaged. And shame on me is what he said. He's like, shame on me. And he goes, if I get bored in this business, I know that I'm not engaging enough with my coaches. And I need to start calling them. I need to call up the coaches in my network, see what's going on. I need to engage in people and see what's going on with people. And that really stood out to me because I can tell you, I've gotten one of those phone calls from Carl where he randomly called me out of the blue and was like, hey, is this Brigitte Linford? I'm like, yes, it's Brigitte. And he's like, this is Carl Deichler. He's like, and they just randomly called me out of the blue. And I've seen he did it with a ton of coaches. I got all feeling like I'm special. And then I got on social media and found out he was I could see all these other people making posts, tagging him that he called them out of the blue. And I'm like, oh, he was calling a lot of people, I guess. But now I know why. Now I know it's because he was taking an action step when he felt disengaged and was losing that passion. And I'm like, I can do that too. Sometimes I admit I lose my passion a little bit and I lose my excitement for this. And I'm like, ho-hum, about my challenge groups or whatever. And I'm like, that means I'm disengaged. That means I need to pick up the phone and call some of my challengers on the phone and say, hey, how are you doing? How are you liking Shakeology? How's it going for you? I need to randomly call a coach and ask him, remember those goals you had? How are you feeling? Are you feeling like you're getting closer? What can he do to support you? Re-engage with people when you feel that lackluster withdrawn of passion. So yeah, I need to engage more. One of the other things that stood out to me is a coach talked about, and this was just in a conversation, but a coach was saying how she's like, I'm seeing that there are ways that I can connect more with my audience, connect more with my customers, and continue to give them value and add value to their life. And she's like, I really like, trying out new recipes. She's like, so I'm going to try out a new recipe every week and email my customer list and let them know, okay, I tried this recipe and it totally bombed. Do not try it. Even if it goes right or wrong, she's like, I'm just going to add value and share this content. And it kind of got me thinking because I'm like, yeah, that's a really good idea. That's something I should do too. But I don't like cooking. And so I'm like, what can I do to add value and to reconnect with my customers? Because I don't send a weekly email to my customers or things like that. And shame on me for not doing that. But I thought, one thing that I do love, one thing that I always appreciate getting these kinds of things in my email are positive affirmations. What I'm learning in personal development and the quotes, those thoughts. And so even I was thinking, like, even if I just make one email a week and just share with my customer list of, hey, this is this book I'm reading. I just wanted to reach out with you guys. I got home from this summer trip and I'm setting these new goals and aspirations, and to help me get there, I'm diving into this book, and these are some of my takeaways, and I just wanted to share with you guys. I think it applies in this way, and this way, and this way, and just share with them my thoughts, and that would be a way that I could add value. And so I'm not saying everyone needs to do an email list, and quite honestly, that one's not like the highest priority, because as you can see, there's so many things that I'm like, wow, I need to do this and this and that, and I had so many takeaways, and I really, again, had to identify like the number one thing for me, and which was I need to share my fitness journey more on social media. And you can see, hopefully, that I've taken action on that, and I'm doing that. And you can all hold me accountable that if you see me not doing that, tell me, be like, you told me you were going to work on this. I'm like, thank you. Hold me accountable. So I do want to do the email. It's just not my top priority, but you'll see me putting that together, holding myself accountable that that's something that I want to do. But you don't have to do an email. It's more of just asking yourself the question of, how can I add more value to my audience, and continue to, just share with them and uplift them and bring everybody up and just raise the level here. I'm talking so long. One other takeaway that someone said that just stood out to me, one night we kind of hung out at the bottom of the hotel lobby and stayed up really late talking, and Mindy knows that we ordered pizza, but she's not going to tell anyone because it was not healthy pizza. And it was like 1 o'clock in the morning when we ordered pizza, and we're sitting down there. It's like 2 a.m. just talking. And it was really cool to just hear people sharing, their aha moments and the goals that they were setting for themselves. And we were just kind of collaborating, and it was one of my favorite nights of Summit. But one of the coaches said something that I wrote down that stood out to me. And she said that personal development cracks the walls of your cultural upbringing. And I loved that because I don't think it's intentional. I know that our parents love us. I know that the people around us love us, but they can only teach you what they've kind of have learned themselves. And sometimes they have learned, they haven't quite yet learned the positive lessons that there were in the circumstances that happened in their life, right? Sometimes they had only yet learned the painful part of it. And so those are the lessons that they pass on to us, that don't set those goals. What are you going to do when you fail? What are you going to do? What's your backup plan? Do you really think you can do this? Or why are you posting that on social media? Why are you, sometimes there are cultural upbringings or even fears and self-limiting beliefs that get passed on down to us, and we don't know any different. I remember myself listening to my first personal development audiobook, and I was like, holy cow, I had no idea. I felt like my mind was being blown, because I'm like, holy cow, if I had known this, if someone had taught this to me years ago, how much heartache I could have avoided. And I just think that we do ourselves a great disservice by not tuning into personal development, by not reading those books, because you don't know what you don't know, right? And so you can retrain the way that you think. You can reprogram how you approach a situation through personal development. I can't do that for you guys. I can't like plug into your brain and just fix it, you know, like be like, well, this is a faulty belief and this is a faulty belief and it's not serving you, so plug in this and that, right? But you can. And you can through personal development. And I'm going to tell you that you can because I have. Like, there are so many things that I grew up thinking and believing that I've come to realize were not true, you know, and that were not reality. I can do hard things. I am not a quitter. I am an awesome, good person. And all of those things I didn't believe as a kid. You know, I didn't think I had anything to offer. I didn't think I had any value. I didn't think I had anything to give. And I'm learning that's not true. That even as a flawed person, I can add value to the world. And I have something unique to give that no one else can give. Just as an example of one of the things I've learned. So anyways, I do strongly encourage you guys to tune in and connect in with personal development because it will change your life. So anyways, it's 1. I took a whole hour talking and I didn't give anybody a chance to ask questions, and I only let Mindy talk, and then I kept on talking. I recorded this, and I'll go ahead and upload it and post it in the group. And anyone else who came, I mean, Claire was there, you know, Janae was there, and other coaches who were on the team. We had a lot from our team. You know, I'll encourage them to maybe share their notes beneath as well and share what their takeaways are. But I'll tell you guys, you know, one of the things that they said there is that you place yourself in the opportunity for the greatest growth and the greatest, you know, giving yourself the greatest chance in life here. And I'll tell you guys that you can do that by getting to Summit next year. You got to go. Like, get on that waiting list now. It's only $150. If you get on the waiting list now, when you get off the waiting list, you're only going to pay $150. So even if you're like, well, I don't know if it will work with my schedule, if I'll be able to get off time from work, if I'll be able to get a babysitter, you actually don't have to make that decision right now. They're not going to charge you. Get on the waiting list so that you can make that decision later on. And you have the opportunity to make the decision. Otherwise, you're not even giving yourself a chance. But it will put yourself in the greatest opportunity, in the greatest place for growth. And that's what you deserve. You know, you deserve to be there. You deserve to feel the same way I felt watching the Beachbody Challenge winners and being reminded of what this is all about and the lives and the opportunities that we have to make a difference in the world. You deserve to feel the same way I did. And so you can get on a Zoom call and cry because you're reconnecting with how you felt there. And you guys deserve that. So I want you there. And that's all. That's all I got. So thanks you guys for getting on this call. And I really do appreciate you all. And I hope you guys are there next year. Thanks you guys.